Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here on Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin, and tonight we are talking about deals and bargains and how much they show up in Supernatural and how important they are to the characters. But before we get into that topic, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Malcolm, the director of the Urban Fantasy Track at DragonCon, which does cover Supernatural and has been ever since the formation of the track 10 years ago. Gail has been on plenty of panels for me in person, and we recently completed, I guess it was back in June, was it May or June? We finished our Supernatural Rewind series that is on the track YouTube channel, where we did a season a month. For a while. It took a while to do. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, Anna.
I'm Anna Kensing. I write queer romance, mostly MM, and I've been a Supernatural fan since the beginning. I took a brief hiatus, I think. It's sort of mid-season, but I then came back and caught up to it, and have just been a fan ever since the show started.
Okay. Elektra.
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and I too have been there since that very first episode.
Very good. Sumiko.
Hi, my name is Sumiko Saulson. I am the social media manager at the Horror Writers Association, and I'm also an award-winning author of Afro-surrealism and horror. I got the Ladies of Horror Fiction Reader's Choice Award this year, so that was nice. I didn't start watching Supernatural until season 2. I was at my dad's house, and he had the episode where Sam and Dean are just regular guys, and Sam's in the IT department. So that was the first one I saw.
Wow, what an introduction.
Yeah.
And I'm Gail C. Martin, and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern day worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I started to watch Supernatural in season 11, fell down the rabbit hole pretty fast, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months to be ready for the start of season 12. And well, the rest is history. I write articles for the Winchester Family Business Blog. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group, and I run the Supernatural Fandom Track here on Continual, as well as a lot of other Supernatural stuff. Now, folks of a certain age are going to remember a game show way back called Let's Make a Deal. And the contestants on that show got a chance to trade what they had for something that might be better or might be a whole lot worse behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. And sometimes they got a new car or a fantastic vacation. And sometimes they got like a bucket of cheese.
Or some pillows.
Or a pillow, or something just ridiculous and useless. So you never knew what you were going to get if you were willing to make a deal. And Supernatural kind of follows that. It's deal after deal, bargain after bargain, trade after trade. It all starts with John and Mary. So let's kind of dive into the Winchester deal making. And if they were contestants on Let's Make a Deal, how do you think, how would you rate their winnings, so to speak? Anna?
Well, I think if we're rating Mary Winchester's deals, then she did not win.
She got that bucket of cheese, huh?
She got that. I don't know. I think a bucket of cheese would have been better than the deal that she got. But Mary Winchester's deal sets up the whole show. It is the show. We don't find out that it was a deal until season 4, but it turns out that the reason why the whole show starts is that Mary makes a deal when her fiance is killed. And so she makes a deal to bring her fiance back. And then she promises to let a demon into their house 10 years from then, and that she won't molest him, she won't get in his way. And that's the night that the demon Azazel comes into Sam's nursery when he's 6 months old and drips blood in his mouth. And Mary does, she reneges on the deal. She does interfere, and she ends up burning on the ceiling, which sets up the whole show. So Mary Winchester's deal is, 10 years of happiness with John and her 2 kids, and then the entire 15 seasons of Supernatural trying to, set on the trajectory that set these boys on. So
of course, her deal making skills. Yeah.
Well, of course, we did find out that when in the alternate universe, when she didn't make the deal, poor Mary still didn't get, a good outcome. So that the poor lady just couldn't win for losing.
Well, but the rest of us lost in the other world, because without Sam and Dean, there was nobody there to stop the apocalypse. Yeah. So, it was kind of important for her to make that first deal.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been a show.
Tiny bit in the show, but everybody else won out, and also somewhere in there, despite the fact that she got killed, she ends up coming back.
Winchesters do that.
Winchesters do that.
Hey, I like you, Dean. Here, have a consolation prize. Use your mom.
I love Sam's comment at some point that, I lost my mother when I was young. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, we met again later and got along just fine. Only a Winchester.
So now I really want to know what happened with Mary in the alternative universe that Hunter Core, Sam and Dean lived in. The super classy, rich Chesters who come in season. So where was Mary then? Was she still alive? Did she make a deal? Did she not make a deal? Anyway, now I want to know.
Maybe she ran off with a rich nightclub owner with a Scottish accent, and short, rich nightclub owner with a Scottish accent, and left John and the boys.
Who also made a deal for 3 extra inches below the belt.
I'm sure someone's written that fanfic.
I'm going to look for that fanfic.
Sumiko and Carol, what do you think?
I think the deals always turned out badly for Sam. Like, no matter who made a deal, it was going to be bad for Sam in the long run. So I think that, Mary's deals turned out badly for Sam. Dean kept trying to save Sam by making deals that made it so that Dean and Sam were both screwed. But honestly, the whole track about Sam being the Antichrist came from the deal. And then that was just like the whole first, 5 seasons. And Dean kept making deals to save him, and they all became a mess. So I think that if you remember like Happy Sam from college way in the beginning, I don't think that tortured emo Sam would have actually been a thing if it wasn't for all the deals that his family made that just interfered with his, ability to have any kind of a normal life, because, he became a hunter because all this was going on with his family, and him trying to be normal, it just was not going to happen. I do want to point out that as far as Crossroads demons go, we didn't even see one until season 2. So we didn't know anything about Crossroads demons until the episode Crossroads Blues, where Dean ran into the Crossroads demons. So we didn't even find out that that's what was up So it's all like kind of a cool backstory that comes up and makes everything make sense and stuff. But sometimes I wonder if it's just like a retcon where they're going back and using the deals to rewrite things because they want to change things. And, you know, Winchesters keep getting resurrected from the dead, and deals are quite useful for that kind of thing.
It's true.
Beginning of season 2, John summons a demon. He just doesn't do it at a crossroads.
And he makes a deal. Yeah.
And he makes the first deal that we're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
For Dean's life.
Because hunters always have been known to play fast and loose with the rules, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But was it a Crossroads demon and we just didn't know because we didn't know about Crossroads demons yet?
It was Azazel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably a bit of a higher up rather than a Crossroads demon, but he still summoned him to make a deal.
Right.
Right. And Azazel is the demon that Mary made the deal with as well.
Right.
So.
And he was a prince of hell, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was up a few levels. Carol, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, well, I do believe that in most cases, most of the Winchesters did not, they probably, if you're comparing them to the show, Let's Make a Deal, they weren't getting the better prize most of the time, and not ultimately, but still that managed to get them at least what they wanted or what they thought they wanted for a period of time. I mean, it's when you're talking about, okay, well, I want to bring somebody back, then you get them back. You have to decide whether that was really the best idea or not, because of the things that as Sumiko is saying, that the deals that Dean made kind of backfired on Sam a few times, though that was not Dean's intent. And although the deals that Sam either made, or there were a few that he was about to make and he got stopped, and that was a good thing because there were a few that would be, if you had done that, not so good. But I think that since the whole idea serves as kind of one of the cornerstones for the show in terms of when you're dealing with demons in one thing, that's in the main instance, that's one thing that they're known for. I mean, just kind of in popular lore and popular culture, it's like if you want something, you make a deal with the demon, whether you have to summon them or you go to the crossroads and do it there, whatever the case may be. So I think that in terms of kind of the backbone of the series, that it made sense that we saw so many of them, whether they were poorly done, poorly advised, let me put it that way. Poorly advised in most cases. And over the course of the series, even the things that we saw that were coming from people who were not the main characters, people make deals for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it is greed, but sometimes it's desperation, and sometimes it's despair. And those are very human qualities that everybody can identify with. Because if this were a real thing that people could actually do, we probably have quite a few people that would do it.
Well, the Crossroads deals were certainly easier than having to play a fiddle contest every time you needed.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Gotten boring.
I think that in a way, Dean actually did better, if it was like, Let's Make a Deal the show than the others, but that's because he sort of cheated. It's just like, he made the deal and he's like, I got this cult, I'm gonna kill you. And so he just kind of used force to get them to cancel the deals when he didn't like them. And if you were on that show, you couldn't really do that. You couldn't be like, I don't want this bucket of cheese, give me the car or I'll shoot you, right. Which is kind of Dean's approach.
They edited those out in post.
Okay. Well, if you think about it in real life, people do go to loan sharks. People do make deals with the mob. People think that they're going to get into a gang and get back out again after they, you know, get through a certain period of their life. And those are all kind of, they don't involve a supernatural devil, but they're all devil's bargains in the fact that this is not going to work out well, no matter what you think. So it is very human to want some sort of powerful something to intervene when you're out of options. And that certainly happens plenty of times in Supernatural. I want to come back to the episode Sumiko mentioned, which was Crossroads Blues. And, you know, part of the folklore that Supernatural draws on so much is, you know, we see that there with the famous blues player, and I'm going to mess up the name, Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson.
Okay. And there's been lore since the 1930s that he had sold his soul to for musical ability. So I love that they pulled that piece of lore in, but you know, what else? There were other kinds of deals besides Crossroads. There was the deal with Gadriel. There were plenty of off the books deals with Crowley, one way or the other.
Okay, he's been summoned.
He's been summoned. Well, a lot of us, they say horse trading. So what were some of the other memorable deals in Supernatural, and how did they work out or not?
By the time you get to season 10 in Reichenbach, Sam has dragged a guy named Lester to a crossroads to get him to summon a crossroads demon, because he is so desperate to get a hold of Crowley that he may get someone else to make a deal with the devil to try and get his cheating wife taken care of, with no regard for the fact that this guy's going to end up in hell.
And sent there by Dean, who is the demon who shows up.
No, he isn't sent to hell, because Dean just kills him.
That's right.
And that doesn't fulfill the contract. The contract was to kill the wife. Mm-hmm. And Crowley has a cow, because if there's one thing that Crowley is into, it's he doesn't renege on contracts. He doesn't, you know, cheat people out of their 10 years or whatever it was. And he doesn't cheat them on the terms. Heck, you know, he filled in an extra clause on Bobby's contract and fixed his legs that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and we also saw, well, what are some of the other deals that made an impression on you, Sumiko?
So I think that once Crowley became kind of in charge of all the Crossroads demons, kind of their big muckety muck, there was a change, you know, in the whole vibe with Crowley, because Crowley was their ally at different points of time. So I think that what really, you know, impacted me was when Crowley decided to give Bobby back his legs, saying, you know, that he wasted his deal, which would not have happened if it was a different, you know, Crossroads demon that didn't have like history with them. So I think that kind of, you know, and I hate to say it, but Crowley is really funny. I mean, it's hard not to kind of like him, you know, even though you know that he's not really a good guy. So I'm fond of him, and I was fond of that deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So one of my favorite deals is the deal that Dick Roman and Crowley make at the end of season 7, where first Dick Roman is really not interested in working with Crowley at all, but then he reconsiders, and the two of them spend the entire night negotiating all of the details of the party of the first part, the party of the second part, vis-a-vis the party of the first part, and like I'm a lawyer in my day job, and this is all just, you know, words like that don't mean anything. It's word salad. It doesn't mean anything at all, but it is just hilarious, the two of them just sort of like going back and forth, because there is that aspect of looking at a long, complicated piece of you know, like, you know, set of papers, and making sure that all of the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and all of the, you know, like sub numbers are properly cross-referenced. And so that's really one of my favorite scenes entirely, is the two of them sort of like dickering over the language of this really long, complicated deal between the two of them.
There is actually one of the scenes where we see Crowley in his office. And if you pay attention to the bookshelf behind him, it is filled with annual updates of the constitutional law updates, the books, the big hardback books that come out. That's what's behind him in his library. So yes, for all those lawyer jokes, I think Crowley's got, I laughed out loud when I saw that, because it's like, okay, somebody's paying attention to the details here. Yeah. Our Brady Bunch grid has gotten turned around, so I'm not sure who I missed or who got a chance to say something. Carol?
You mentioned it earlier that it was an ill-advised deal, but as I have said, I think that most of them were. But the one that Dean made with Gadriel, I thought was particularly poignant, just because the whole time that you could see what it was, what it was costing himself, even, well, I shouldn't say what it was costing him necessarily, but the effect that it had on himself, knowing what he had done and knowing how his brother would have felt about it if he had been aware, that he had said, okay, sure, we'll let this angel that I don't know anything about into your, and I think, that was, and what was the name that he had originally given him? Because he didn't tell him who he really was. Ezekiel. That's right. And we find out it was, I guess, Kaz was the one who told him, hey, that's not Ezekiel. Yeah. But in any case, I think that was a very different way to see what the effect was, because he made the deal, ostensibly for his brother, and yet really it was for, he did it to help Sam. There's no question about that. But we didn't get to see the actual effect on Sam until later, after he becomes more aware of it and after he becomes aware of what happened. But I just thought it was kind of a different twist to what we usually saw with the deals, to see the effect that it had in a different way. The thing
that I think about with a lot of their deals to save each other is, okay, take it out of the supernatural realm. You see somebody you love and you're crossing the street and they're about to get hit by a car, and you knock them out of the way so they don't get hit, but you get killed. You don't stand there and think, you know what? If I die to save them, this is going to mess them up for the rest of their life. They're going to need therapy. Right. They are going to have, they're never going to forgive me. This is, they are never going to be happy. I should just let them die. You're not going to do that. In that moment of desperation, you're going to do what you can do to save their life. And if they've got PTSD and trauma and they're screwed up for the rest of their life, well, at least they're alive. And I think that's kind of underlying all their deals for each other is, well, you can hate me, but you'll be alive to hate me.
Right.
And that's kind of hard to argue with when you think about that real life situation.
Yeah.
Now, Mary did not have good luck on making deals, because she comes back and pairs up with the British men of letters and makes a deal with them. Really, nobody should let this woman sign contracts.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about a deal with the devil, right? Yeah.
The devil is actually more predictable and more trustworthy.
Oh, yeah.
Any other thoughts? There were plenty of characters who made lots of deals. Bella, for example, Rowena. What are some of your other favorite deals or most important deals that went down?
Dean made a deal with death to get his ring. Mm-hmm. And that was a super important one. And Dean had a lot of concerns over what Death was going to do when he found out that Dean lied to him about exactly what he was going to do, because they weren't quite sure how they were going to work things to get the devil and Michael into the pit.
Well, he also made a deal with Death to get Sam's soul back.
Yep.
Because he had to go be Death for a day and learn a lesson and eat some pizza.
Yes.
Fried pickles.
And that was probably the easiest part, yeah.
And that seemed to actually be the Death trying to teach him something, and he agreed to do it honestly and tried. And when he messed up, he went through it and said, look, I know I messed up and I lose. He didn't try to lie about doing it.
Well, and both Winchesters try to make another deal with Death late in the season. Both Sam, at the moment when Gadriel talks him out of dying, he wanted a deal that nobody could bring him back. And then at the end of season 10, Dean in that Mexican cantina makes a deal with Death, he thinks, or he's planning to get sent to the empty and kill Sam. So again, Death shows up with a lot of deals.
Oh,
yeah, I think
there's a deal. Castiel's deal with the empty. That is a killer deal. When he calls to collect on that one, there's not a dry eye in the house. In despair, he stands there and explains about the deal to Dean and calls the empty.
Well, and being so sure that the deal isn't going to get collected in any foreseeable future because he'd have to be happy.
Yes.
And then he realizes he's happy even though he's never going to get what he wants.
Yeah. So there's some real Winchester nihilism going there.
Yeah. He learned from the best.
That's true.
I think maybe not an important deal, but an amusing one was when Becky Rosen made a deal to force Sam to fall in love with her, marry her.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's like, you knew that couldn't really work because that would kind of be, bad for the whole Winchester enterprise. So, of course, it didn't, but can't blame her for trying.
And that Crossroads demon, it reneges on the deals, right? He claims that it's not him who's reneging it because really, he isn't doing anything to go back on those deals, but it's important to have a capable intern. But then Crowley comes in and says, this isn't Wall Street. This is hell. We can't.
Yeah,
exactly. The guy that didn't admit to being a demon. He was pretending to be her best friend.
Yes, initially.
There's a lot of weirdness going on in that one.
Yeah.
And he was just, well, where did you think I was getting this stuff from? I'm a demon, dummy.
Yeah, you'd think after being such an expert on the whole series that she would have, figured out something like that at some point.
She was too focused on Dean's clavicle.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess. Yeah.
Understandably so, but still. Well, and Rowena made plenty of deals or poor alliances over the course of her very long life. She kept trying to find allies or acceptance, and it just never seemed to work out right for her.
Oh, goodness. The Plum sisters. When she made a deal with them to go and get the Black Grimoire and bring it back to them. That was a very bad bargain all around.
Well, and the Laughlins, that we run into in regarding Dean, where they remember her before she had power, when she was, this little ragged waif. And obviously she tried to make a deal with them and it didn't go well. So we definitely have a lot of cautionary tales about deals that don't exactly go the way they're supposed to.
All she ever wanted was a coven so that they could pool their power and do some spells and hang out and drink champagne and have a good time and, do girl talk.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever wanted to be her friend.
Kind of understandable, when you get to that point that, all she wanted was a bunch of girls for a girls' weekend with some magic and maybe kill a few people. What the hell?
But she was willing to share her spells, and she didn't get why nobody wanted her around.
Especially not the lady she turned into a hamster.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah.
She totally deserved being a hamster.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some of the other deals or bargains people made, even if we might
Gary who wanted to be a grown-up and switch bodies with Sam. And was so excited to be able to eat bread and drink and meet girls.
And have the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meet cougars. I mean, really.
Yeah, that was swap meet.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Teenagers
should never make demon deals. It never works out for them.
Well, and the other two teenagers were also trying to make a deal, a much darker type of deal for power. Gary just wanted to, go have a beer and get laid. But the other two had a lot more evil on their minds. Sumiko, I think you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, what about the one where Donald Trump says that he made a deal with Crowley?
That's the one where Jack keeps everybody from lying. And one of my favorite side characters, she's only in it for a few minutes in the whole series, is Stapler Lady, who goes around taking everybody's stapler and holding on, go, I've got all the staplers. And, in that episode where nobody could lie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that death, we were talking earlier about death and all the deals they made to get around death. There was that one episode where death was just totally pissed off at them and made it so that they were going to have to get repay. And I forget what that demon is that said that he made it so that he changed reality because he hated the song from the Titanic.
Oh,
yes.
In that episode, he changed things he made it so that people didn't die in the Titanic to stop that song from becoming a hit. And that made it so that a whole bunch of people didn't die, including Bobby. And then Death, of course, blamed the Winchesters and were after them. So, yeah.
Well, another attempted deal with death was in Red Meat, when Dean thinks Sam's been killed by the werewolf, and he poisons himself to summon new death, Billy, and says, take me and bring him back. Now, she didn't go for the deal, but Dean was offering.
There's also another deal that we don't actually know anything about, which is, so it's at the end of season 5, and it's 2 minutes to midnight, and Dean's going to go off and meet Death in Chicago, right? And he's going to talk about getting the ring from him. And Sam pulls out Ruby's knife and hands it to Dean and says, you might need this. And Crowley says, keep it, and hands him a scythe. And it's Death's scythe. And both of the Winchesters like, where did you get that from? And he's like, hello, King of the Crossroads. And so we have no idea what Crossroads deal this is. Really, Crowley engaged in a Crossroads deal where he got Death's scythe.
Yeah.
Speaking of Winchesters making bad deals, there's Adam, who agreed to be Michael's vessel after that one man tier episode where they have the little girls putting on the play, and in the play they have Adam just pop up and being all sad and stuff. Like, he was not really given the same amount of love as the rest of the Winchesters, so they just kind of let him be locked down there
He thought he was making a deal to make sure he could eventually be with his mother in heaven because they'd been killed by ghouls. So that was his motivation for saying yes to Michael, was you're gonna get my mom and we're gonna be together in heaven. And so, yeah.
He was already dead.
Yeah. Well,
one of the deals that kind of sticks out to me is the one, he was I can't remember his name, but he was one of the princes of hell that was in hiding, and he didn't want to be the king of hell, and so he had Crowley do it instead. And so that was an interesting deal that had a lot of implications, and it was cool that we found that out when we did, that it was as far, I guess, into the series as it was, that we found out that how Crowley got to from point A to point B and what actually happened. So that, to me, that was an interesting deal and an interesting way to find out. That it was built so much into all of the other events of that particular episode. Because wasn't that, what was that, season 12 or something? We find that out. So because I guess you kind of just took it for granted that he moved up the ladder, so to speak, because when we first see the character, he is a Crossroads demon. So we find out, and then later, oh, I'm king of hell, but he never really offered an explanation. And at the time, we just kind of accepted it because, well, it's Crowley. And the other thing is that, no wonder he didn't tell us. If you're doing it because you made a deal with a guy who wants to stay secret and could cause you nothing but sorrow and a whole lot of pain if the secret gets out, then of course you don't tell.
Well, another guy who tried to make a deal and it didn't go well for him was was his name Bart? He was the guy who tried to make a deal with Sam to become the next king of hell. And
maybe
Sam with the grief beard going, there will be no new king of hell.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And Bart and his fellow demons really didn't walk out of that bar. So that was a deal that didn't go well.
Yes.
And there was no new king of hell. We got a queen. That's right.
So then that probably was a bit of foreshadowing that we should have picked up on, right?
Should have seen, yeah. Well, folks, as always, we have blown through our times. I want to make sure we have time to give everybody a chance to say where we can find you online, starting with Elektra.
On Elektra Hammond, you can find anything you need to know at untilmidnight.com.
All right, Anna?
You can find me at annakensing.com or on TikTok at Anna Kensing Books.
Great. Sumiko?
You can find me at sumikosaulson.com or on most social medias at Sumiko SKA.
Very good. Carol?
Yes, you can find the DragonCon Urban Fantasy track. If you go to Facebook and just put in DragonCon Urban Fantasy, you'll go straight to it. That page is active all year long. And, I post there most days, at least once or twice a day, and just to keep people up to date of what's going on, because we do a number of virtual, not as many as Gail does over here, but I still do a few a month. So different topics. The track is a hybrid, covers both books and media. So, I do some of both each month. And also we do have a YouTube channel that if you go to YouTube and put in DragonCon Urban Fantasy, it'll take you right there.
Awesome. Well, and I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on all the social media channels in some variation of those names. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I write for the Winchester Family Business blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up online. So we'll see you back here again soon. Thanks.